The desert stretched endlessly beneath a sheet of moonlight, silvering every ridge and stone. The wind whispered through the sagebrush, carrying the faint cry of a coyote across the open plains. A lone cowboy, Eli Ward, rode slowly through the darkness, his hat pulled low and his poncho flapping in the cold wind. His horse, a weary roan named Buck, stumbled now and then, snorting at the scent of wolves and dust. Eli's face was roughened by sun and time, his blue eyes dulled by sleepless nights. He had been riding for 3 days, fleeing both men and memories, a gunfight gone wrong, a sheriff's warrant, and a woman he couldn't save. The moon guided him like an old friend, casting ghostly shadows that seemed to move as he passed. When he reached the canyon's edge, he spotted a faint glimmer of firelight in the distance, warm, steady, and inviting. He hesitated. He knew this was Apache land, territory where strangers vanished without a trace, but exhaustion gnawed at his bones, and the bitter cold had long since seeped through his coat. Just till morning, he muttered, patting Buck's neck. "We'll rest, then ride at dawn." He dismounted quietly and led the horse behind a cluster of rocks. The air smelled faintly of smoke and roasted corn, human presence. Cautiously, he moved toward the nearest shelter made of wooden poles and deerskin. The flap was open just enough for him to peek inside. Seeing no movement, he stepped in. Inside, the warmth wrapped around him instantly. The flicker of a dying fire danced on the walls, and a woven mat lay in the corner. Eli let out a long, grateful sigh and sank down onto it, removing his hat. For the first time in days, he felt safe, or at least thought he was. But the silence wasn't empty. From the far side of the shelter, a pair of dark eyes glimmered in the shadows. The chief's daughter, Nita, sat quietly, her hand resting on a carved knife. She had returned early from gathering herbs, only to find a stranger and a white cowboy and asleep in her home. As the flames flickered, Nita studied the intruder's face. Dusty, scarred, yet oddly peaceful. She didn't move, but her thoughts raced. Who was this man? And why had he come into her shelter? The daughter of the Apache chief. The night had just taken a dangerous turn. Eli woke to the soft rustle of movement and the faint scent of smoke. His eyelids fluttered open, and for a moment he couldn't tell if he was dreaming or awake. The fire beside him had burned low, its orange glow painting the small shelter in warm shadows. Then his heart stopped and a blade gleamed inches from his throat. "Don't move," a calm but commanding voice said. He froze. Standing over him was Nita, the Apache girl whose shelter he had unknowingly entered. Her black hair spilled over her shoulders like silk, her eyes sharp and unblinking. She held a ceremonial knife carved from obsidian, its edge catching the light like ice. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady. "Why are you here?" Eli raised his hand slowly, showing his empty palms. "Name's Eli Ward," he said, voice rough from dust and sleep. "I meant no harm, ma'am. Just needed a place to rest. Thought this place was empty." "Empty?" she repeated, frowning. "You are on Apache land. Nothing here is empty." He swallowed, trying to stay calm. "Didn't mean to trespass. I've been riding 3 days straight. No food, no shelter. I was just looking for warmth, that's all." For a long moment she said nothing. The knife stayed close, but her gaze softened ever so slightly. There was something in his voice, exhaustion, not arrogance. Still, she didn't trust him. "If my father finds you here," she said, lowering the blade just a little, "you'll never leave this canyon alive. He is Chief Tahoma. He kills trespassers." Eli sighed. "Then I best be gone before he gets back." He started to rise, but she stopped him with a sharp gesture. "Wait," she whispered. Her head turned toward the canyon mouth. The faint rumble of hooves echoed through the morning air, many riders returning. Nita's face drained of color. "They're back," she said under her breath. "Who?" Eli asked. "My father's hunting party," she replied. "If they find you here, they'll think I sheltered you." Eli's pulse quickened. "Then I'll leave now." "No," she said quickly. "Too late. They'll see you." She glanced toward the back of the shelter, then made a decision. "Follow me, quietly." Before Eli could argue, Nita grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward a hidden passage between 2 slabs of rock. Behind them, the sound of warriors shouting in Apache grew louder. The chase for the intruder had begun. The sun had climbed higher, painting the canyon walls in harsh gold and shadow, but Eli and Nita had no time to admire the view. Behind them, the pounding of hooves and the war cries of Apache warriors filled the air, echoing off the cliffs like thunder. Arrows zipped past, some striking the rocks with sharp thwacks, sending clouds of dust swirling around them. Nita moved like a shadow, weaving through narrow passages and leaping over jagged boulders. Her bare feet barely made a sound on the rocky ground, her balance perfect even on the steepest inclines. Eli stumbled after her, cursing under his breath. Every misstep sent pain shooting up his legs, but adrenaline kept him moving. "Why are you helping me?" he gasped, struggling to keep pace as he scrambled over a fallen rock. "Because you didn't reach for a gun," she said without turning. Her voice was steady, though her chest rose and fell with exertion. "That means something. That means you might not be completely like the others." They came to a narrow ridge overlooking a steep drop into a dry creek bed. The only way down was treacherous, loose stones and sharp rocks waiting to twist an ankle or worse. Eli hesitated, fear clawing at his stomach. "Come on," Nita urged, grabbing his arm. "No other way." Carefully they descended. Eli slipped once, catching himself just before tumbling into the canyon below. Nita glanced at him, lips pressed in a thin line, but said nothing. They reached the bottom, and for a fleeting moment, silence fell, but it was quickly replaced by the shouts of warriors above. Scanning the ridge for any sign of them, at the base, Eli spotted his horse, Buck, patiently waiting near a cluster of shrubs. Relief washed over him, but he knew it wasn't over. "Go," Nita said, brushing dust off her shoulders. "Mount and ride east. Don't look back." Eli turned toward her, desperation in his eyes. "Come with me. You can hide, we can escape together." She shook her head, dark eyes glinting. "A chief's daughter doesn't run. I face what comes." Eli hesitated for a moment, then pressed a small silver locket into her hand. "If you ever change your mind," he said, voice low, "look for the stars over the plains. I'll be there." Nita clutched the locket, her fingers brushing over its worn surface. Without another word, Eli swung onto Buck and galloped into the open plains. Dust rose behind him like a ghostly curtain, the sound of the warriors fading as the canyon swallowed him from view. Nita stood alone for a moment, watching the dust trail disappear, a mixture of relief and sorrow etching her face. She turned back toward the shadows of her homeland, knowing that one wrong step could still cost her life. But somewhere in her heart, a spark had been lit. A story had begun that neither she nor Eli would ever forget. The sun was high and relentless, burning down over the canyon as Chief Tahoma returned to the shelter. Dust clung to his robes, and the war paint on his face glistened with sweat. His eyes, dark and piercing, swept the area, immediately noticing the footprints, 2 sets, one unmistakably non-Apache. He turned slowly toward his daughter, Nita, who stood just inside the doorway of the shelter. Her posture was calm, but her eyes betrayed the tension coiled in her chest. The chief's gaze fell on her, sharp as an arrow. "You hit him," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I did," Nita admitted without flinching. "He was lost. He needed help. I could not watch him die." The chief's expression hardened, then softened, a dangerous flicker of consideration crossing his features. "You have brought shame upon our people," he said, taking a step closer. "Or perhaps mercy. Only time will tell which." Nita swallowed, her heart racing. She had defied him, defied tradition, and yet she had saved a life that could have been easily lost to vengeance. She looked down at the small silver locket in her hand, feeling the weight of the gift Eli had left behind. It was more than a token. It was a promise, a thread connecting her to a world beyond the canyon. For days afterward, life returned to its usual rhythm in the camp. Nita carried on her duties, tending the herbs, caring for the horses, speaking quietly with the younger warriors, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Every night, she would sit by the fire after the tribe had gone to sleep, holding the locket, imagining Eli riding under the same moon, thinking of her. One evening, as the sky turned deep indigo and stars began to shimmer like distant lanterns, she whispered into the night wind, "Ride safe, Cowboy." The words felt fragile, yet they carried a weight she could not shake. Somewhere out there, Eli was alive, following the stars eastward, guided by hope and memory. Chief Tahoma watched her from a distance, a silent observer. He had been furious, but he also recognized the courage it took to act with, compassion in a world ruled by survival and fear. Perhaps, he thought, there was wisdom in mercy, and so the story settled into legend. A cowboy who stumbled into the heart of Apache land, a daughter who defied her father to save a life, and a bond forged under the silver gaze of the moon, a bond neither blood nor law could erase, a reminder that even in the harshest lands, courage and kindness could bloom. The desert remained quiet once more. But in the hearts of Eli and Nita, the night sky held the promise of reunion, adventure, and a freedom only the brave could claim.